welcome to Leading the Follower with your host, Rebecca Benston. Good morning. It's me, Rebecca Benston, and I am back. It is Friday, and I'm just raring to go, I guess. Feeling a lot better than I was, aside from just the normal Ohio misery that you suffer when you have allergies and sinus issues and things like that. I think all of us who live in Ohio can sympathize there. But anyway, just trying to get my energy back to where it was so that I can tackle some projects that I've wanted to tackle for a while. And I'm actually out in my car this morning, just kind of driving to make sure that my car gets some time on the road because I rarely drive anymore. The funny thing is, I think that might be part of the topic that I want to talk about today is how sometimes we put things on autopilot and we forget that we have the ability to actually drive the car. And I'll tell you why this came up for me. I have been feeling a lot like everything is on hold lately. Just not feeling as actively engaged in things as I would like to. I usually have a sense of, this is how I want this done. This is what I'm going to do this week. And I have my goals set and I go and do it. And that's generally how I operate. And I have like a list of things that I do, a list of things that I want to accomplish, and I check them off as I go. And lately, I have just not been making my lists even as consistently as I used to. And I think part of it was that I didn't allow myself to rest. I didn't give myself the time I needed to recharge. And so when that happens, inevitably you're going to wear down and you're going to get sick. And I did that. And I was down for a little while and I didn't feel great. And I have some other things that I deal with, like arthritis and fibromyalgia and just things that are just irritating. And they make life not so pleasant sometimes, especially when the weather gets rainy and cold and snowy and icy. And it's just painful to exist during those times. So I found that since my daughter started driving earlier in the year, she got her first car last summer, and I guess it was last year that she started driving. It was late last year, not earlier this year. I have basically let her do most of the driving when we go out and do anything. And it used to be I was the primary driver. No matter where we went, if we went places with my sister or all of us got together and did anything, I like to drive. I'm just someone who enjoys being the driver. And I noticed the other day, not really the other day, but I've noticed along the way that I seem to have like relinquished my driving rights, and I haven't been doing nearly enough uh, to do, just to command where my life goes. And I've been not just trusting things to God, because I think that is necessary. I think we need to do that. But I have been putting things on hold and waiting for His direction. But at the same time, I've also just stopped. And I'll get into that just a little more in a minute. We have a tendency to sometimes let things like grief or fear or whatever take over and drive our lives when we really need to take the wheel at those times and steer ourselves out of whatever crisis we're in, instead of letting those emotions take over and lead us down a path maybe we don't really want to go. Because it takes a very long time to come back from that. For me, I wasn't really an avid driver until later in life. I didn't really enjoy it quite as much until I got older, and I was the person who was taking the family on road trips and things like that. And like right now, I'm driving around. I kind of wanted to go to this one place, and they appear to be very busy, and so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go home and enjoy what I have at home. But the point is, sometimes we let our emotions, our fear and anxiety, and even trauma, things that we don't really have a choice, um, but to acknowledge. we let that we let that steer us into a period of inaction or of wrong action. And I've done that in my life. I have definitely um, allowed trauma to direct me in a way that was less than productive or less than healthy for me. And it it took a lot to come back from. So, I got to thinking about that, and I had been feeling a little depressed lately, and just didn't really want to acknowledge that. So I kind of just let her drive and chalked it up to it's just more convenient if she does. Well, of course it is. Of course it's more convenient. That's always the first thing that we see is the more convenient path is generally, you know, avoidance. And let fear and anxiety and all of our emotional responses take the wheel for too long, we become reluctant to get back in the car at all, even as a passenger. And we have to be very careful of that. And it is extremely important that even when we don't feel like it, that sometimes we offer to drive. Even when it's not convenient, even when we'd rather be, catching up on emails and things like that as a passenger, which I often do. And it has helped me a lot because I have a little bit more demanding job than what I had before. And for my business, I tend to do things in my pockets of time that I have that are free. So if my daughter and I take a drive and I can check emails or answer emails and things like that during my lunch break or my other breaks, or the end of the day or whenever we're driving somewhere, it is helpful to have that pocket of time. So yeah, in some ways, that convenience is one that I definitely enjoy, and I don't necessarily want to give up if I don't have to. But when it starts being that she's driving and I find that I'm maybe playing a game or just scrolling through looking at dumb stuff instead of doing something productive, then it's not a matter of convenience. It's a matter of avoidance. And not only am I putting all of the burden on her to get us from point A to point B, I'm not even using the time that frees up wisely. So, and then I look at other areas in my life and I think, okay, where else am I on autopilot? Where else have I just either let things go or set it to the side until I'm ready to deal with it. Well, I always have a lot going on. And for me, I think taking a break was definitely necessary. Because it does get stressful. And there have been times when I've thought, why am I still doing all of this stuff myself? You know, I take on a whole lot for the business that I run, for Higher Ground Books and Media, and it does get to be a little challenging sometimes because the return is not always proportionate to what I put in. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It hasn't been for 10 years. And it's, would I like to be making enough money from the business to not have to have another job? Well, sure. I would love that. But that's just not the reality. So, I noticed that I've started kind of setting aside different things. And I like to think that I work pretty productively and I do use my pockets of time very wisely. I have probably allowed myself a little bit more free time than was absolutely necessary, because I've been tired. And when you're run down, you tend to maybe choose the easy path a lot more often. But I think getting back to what I was saying before about there having been times in my life when I let a trauma overtake me, and my reaction to that was just to hang back, stop moving forward, and wait and make sure I was okay. And healing is one thing. If you're in a process where you're trying to heal from a trauma and you need to step back and give yourself a break, yes, do that. Always do that. But make sure that when things start to feel right again, when you start to feel like it's okay to open the door, it's okay to step onto the porch, it's okay to walk out to the car, it's okay to get in and start the car and actually drive somewhere, that you take those steps when it is time to take them, and that you don't continue to put those things off out of fear that you will encounter another trauma. I will tell you, I've encountered many traumas in my life, and it has been a struggle, just to make sure that I got back out there and started doing what I needed to do. Um, I think when I went through the whole thing where I was raped and just didn't know what to do with myself at that point, it was so difficult. I shut down completely, and the only thing that I would allow myself to do was drink. And I went out and I made sure that I had enough alcohol at all times to to just keep myself from feeling a certain way. I think a lot of people do that when they have experienced trauma. They might use alcohol or drugs or something else, to keep them from feeling the pain of that trauma. And they never stop using that thing, and they get stuck in this pattern of, this will numb it, this will numb the pain, and I won't feel it anymore, and I will eventually be okay, but for now this is what I'm going to do. Well, then for now becomes a couple months, and then a year, and then before you know it, your life has been this continuous pattern of numbing the pain, not confronting what you went through, not healing, thinking you've healed because you haven't encountered another trauma, or um, you haven't had to use that part of yourself um, for anything substantial. Like you shut down in that area and you prevent people from going in. That doesn't mean that you have fixed the problem. The problems are still there. When you take the tape off and you go back through the doorway, you're still stepping into all of the problems that you left there when you started to um, use the other method of coping. Coping is different than healing, and a lot of people don't make that distinction. A lot of people think that because they're going out and they're partying and they're having fun in one respect, or they think what passes for fun. I mean, I used to think that when I would go out and get drunk and do the karaoke scene and all that, and just have a blast with my friends, I thought I was just really having a lot of fun, until one day it hit me. This hurts, and I'm not filling up any emptiness that's in me that was created because of what happened. I'm not piecing together any kind of life here. I'm running from something that hurt me. And I'm allowing the memory of that thing to keep me from going down the path that I was originally on to meet the destination that I had planned to meet. I let it derail me to a point where I didn't accomplish anything for a long time. But I sure racked up the pain points, and added more and more pain on top of that with the behaviors that I was engaging in. And it just didn't help anything. It didn't do what I needed to do. Yes, you do go through a time after any injury, be that physical, emotional, psychological, whatever. When you hurt yourself, when you maybe cut yourself and you need stitches, what do? They go in and they numb the area so that you won't feel what they're getting ready to do to you. And thank God, because that hurts. But that isn't supposed to be a permanent state. We're not supposed to stay permanently numb. We're supposed to stay numb for long enough to get the healing and then come out of it gradually to where we can feel things, and that feeling things doesn't hurt anymore unless it's supposed to. It's okay to feel pain in our lives. We're supposed to be able to feel all of the emotions. We're supposed to be able to experience joy and sadness and whatever comes with the things that are going on in our lives. Granted, we don't want to experience pain, and I think some people are so afraid of it that they just will never never allow themselves to do that. But there is, as one of my authors had titled her book, Finding Purpose in the Pain. Excuse me. And that's Brenda McIntyre. You can find that in the HGBM shop. I'll just give a little plug there in the middle of this discussion. there is purpose in the pain. You need to go through some pain in order to figure out the lesson and to understand this is what happens when we do this. This is what happens when I treat somebody this way. This is what happens when I treat myself this way. This is what happens when I let someone treat me this way. That's the way we get through life and the way we understand how things work. The way we start to form our worldview and develop our understanding of how people interact with one another is through periods of pain and joy and just alternating whatever. We won't figure that out if we stand in the corner and watch everybody else live. So it's one of the hardest things to make yourself learn. Especially depending on how you've been hurt and the depth to which you've been hurt. It is really difficult to get back out there and say, okay, I'm ready for the next thing. Come at me. That's what I need, is for you to just hit me with your best shot, But, and I don't want that. I definitely am not standing out there just like trying to welcome adversity. I don't want that. But I'm not going to be afraid of it either. I'm going to deal with it if it comes up. Because 9 times out of 10, when we go out and we're willing to face our lives in an honest way and feel the emotions that come with everything, we're going to have a better experience. And in some cases, things that might have been painful before, they won't be as painful if we are strong enough to face them when they occur, instead of trying to cover them up or water those experiences down. So I hope that makes sense. And I don't know. A lot of people, they don't want to hear that. And that's the thing with the books that I publish. A lot of people don't want to hear what we have to say, because a lot of what people write when they write their life story is confrontational. Not just for other people, it's extremely confrontational for them. And usually when you're writing your biography or your memoir, it is extremely difficult to go back to where you've been and document it and understand it and process it and then lay it out there for other people to look at and understand. So people who come to me with their life story, they're brave, and their willingness to share is it always astounds me. It's like, some of the stories are hard to read. They're just like, I can't believe you went through this. But I also went through some terrible things, and sharing those with people, I think, makes them not quite as bad as they once were. I've taken the power away from them. So in doing that, when we take our power back, we allow ourselves the freedom to live our lives in the way that God intended. So don't be afraid, even when things are bad. Don't be afraid to confront that and fight it. That's how you have your best shot at being happy and living the life that God means for you to live. I hope this is helpful to you. I hope that you have a great weekend and that you are able to think about some of the things that you are going through or have gone through, and understand that there is purpose and that it's okay to give up a little bit of your control for a time while you heal, but regroup and get back out there and do the thing. Okay? Have a great weekend. God bless. Thanks for stopping by. Be sure to check out our website and blog. The blog is at www.leading-the-follower.com. Thanks and God bless.